and I don't know if you guys want to go as far as I'm going with you, but I'll give you the gist of Polish politics in 2 or 3 minutes, and then you'll understand what's happening now a bit more, right?
Good. Perfect.
About 15 years ago, did you ever hear about the Polish president dying in an air crash? Do you know what I'm talking about here?
No.
Okay.
No, we did not even.
Please tell us.
Okay, so like 15 years ago, this is you got 2 guys in Poland, twins. There's identical twins. One is the president, and one is the leader of the political party that is about to get into power.
They're like the Winklevoss twins.
Wait, so they're opposition?
Identical twins. No. Identical twins working together. One's already the president, and the other one's, trying to become the prime minister, right? And these identical. Yeah, it's that's what I was saying. But the president dies in an air crash, and the plane was going to Russia to commemorate like a very other important historical event that is very contentious, which I'm not going to get into because it's going to be bringing us back to the 1920s with this one, 1940s. So the president dies, and now the other twin is kind of saying, listen, the Russians, not only did they kill the president, they also killed my brother, right? So the whole kind of political conversation for the past 10, 15 years has been whether the president was killed by the Russians, whether, the his brother has been killed. He's always been saying that it was the Russians. That was the narrative for like 5 or 10 years. Then they get into power with that narrative, let's say. I'm simplifying it a lot. And now this political party that is kind of based on this kind of, on an angle where, we're always the victims, there's always an enemy, the classic kind of populist way of, using power, right? Or I don't know if I'm, maybe missing.
Is this the Law and Justice Party you're talking about?
That's the Law and Justice Party, yeah.
Okay, so they were basically founded in a guy dying, and
continue.
And is this the kind of like a conspiracy or maybe a theory that he was killed by the Russians? And so
it was the political party wasn't founded then. I mean, it existed, but it was again, I'm missing a word, the counter party, not the one in power, but the opposition.
Yeah.
Opposition.
The opposition, yeah. And once the president died, in fact, they didn't win the first election afterwards. So that's also very interesting. People forget that they didn't win the first one afterwards. The main, the PO is the other political party, won it then. And then for 4 years, they were saying, like, these guys, not only are they in power, they're also not doing anything about my brother that was killed by the Russians. And that narrative lasted for 4 years. And then they got in power. And now it's 10 years later with these two political parties always, locking heads. But right now it's so divided, Poland's so divided that it's really us against them. And that narrative has been present, even stronger in the last couple of days. And, it's been just mounting for years.
Who's the one with the twins? Is that Duda? That's
Kaczynski. So right now in Poland, this is also like almost like a James Bond villain plot twist. But you've got the main guy in Poland he doesn't have like an official position almost. Because you got the president, that's Duda. You got the prime minister, that's Morawiecki. But they all belong to a political party which is ruled by Kaczynski.
And
Kaczynski he's the guy. He's the puppet master. Exactly. But he lives like in a fucking house down the road from here. So he's not smart. Like he lives in an ordinary house. He doesn't have a family. He's like, there's a big fucking thing with his cat. He has a cat. He loves cats, and he rules the fucking world. Like he's
Kaczynski.
Shout out Kaczynski.
So if kids in your neighborhood trick or treat, or you don't go trick or treat, but if you're walking around the neighborhood, you can see him. You can see him out and about this week, or you just see him out. He's
like an evil Warren Buffett.
Right now there's huge protests underneath his house. So I don't think you'll see him. See a lot of him, but he is. Yeah, he's basically
the grocery store.
Yeah, almost. I mean, I've never personally seen him, but it's not uncommon to see him.
Yeah.
So he's the kingmaker.
He's the puppet master. He's definitely So he's the puppet master.
What happens, kind of like in the society that allowed for this? It seems like, they're called the Law and Justice Party. It seems like a nationalistic party. They're anti-gay, they're anti-Jew, anti-German. What was going on in society that allowed them to come to power? Was it like was the economy bad or something, or kind of?
I'd go even further. I'd make you guys realize that Poland, historically, I mean, even geographically, it's between Germany and Russia. Basically, there's a couple of countries in between, but it's where you've got fucking huge. Eastern European influences, Western European influences, Germany, France, like the continental Europe, and then we're very close to Russia, and we've always been like that state where if these guys are fighting, they're fighting at our place. You know what I mean? There's a comedian in Poland who has that joke where he kind of says something along the lines that we're not great at war, we lose them, but we're great at hosting wars. If you guys want to have a war, come to our place, and it's
Stalin and Hitler originally agreed to split up Poland. That's how they could keep the peace for a bit, and then
and so pretty much, and the wars between kind of Germany, Russia, Poland in the mix, fucking Austria, the Habsburg Empire earlier, that's been like ever since Poland started. I mean, that's always been the case where we're kind of going here, going there, fucking doing something with these guys, then going against these guys. It's always been like a war-ridden history. So with that in mind, after World War II, Poland kind of goes closer to Europe. I mean, it's communism. Fuck, this is actually a lot of.
No, this is fine, man. That's what we do on our show. Yeah? Don't worry about it.
Okay.
There's no.
After World War.
We like to make fun of our listeners, but they are actually smart. So you can go as deep as you want to go. People are interested.
World War II happens, and then communism happens in Poland. So we're forced to be Russian, right? So everyone, they allow us to have our own language, but it's all Russified. There's propaganda everywhere, and everyone fucking hates communism. There's nothing in the shops. Everyone's trying to get rid of communism. And then in the 90s, Solidarność comes about, which is a movement, one of the greatest historical movements, because peacefully we managed to get rid of communism in Poland. There was never any war. There was never any violence. It just kind of happened. For a series of mistakes by the Communist Party, through the unification of workers, and at some point the Communist Party said, let's have a free election, because they thought they're going to win it, and they actually lost terribly. And then there's a period of change where from the 90s to, let's say, the early 2000s, we switched from a communist state to a let's say Western European culture, whatever, for lack of words, right? So within those changes in that, to answer your question, how did it happen that a right-wing government came into power? It's always been, traditionally, historically, we've always been fucking a bit of here, a bit of there, right? So it's not as if, oh my God, this is the first right-wing government we've ever had. What's happening? It's always kind of fucking been around. And, as the world is, changing fucking everywhere, you got right-wing governments coming into power, and Poland's no different, right? So it's, to answer your question, why Poland has a right-wing government, fucking why does the world? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So maybe the opposite. Why did Russia, why did Poland not have a right-wing government, maybe for like that little gap in the middle? Would that be a better question if it seems like the norm is to have a right-wing government?
I wouldn't say it's the norm to have a right wing or a left wing. I'd say the norm is that it fluctuates. That would be the norm, right?
Yeah.
I think right now, in the last, I'm only 27, so I only know Poland, past the communist times, which were in the 90s, right? So I was born in communist Poland, but I don't really remember it. My brothers that are 10 years older, they kind of have some memory of it. I'm from the kind of newer generation that has had it all. So people my age are generally more left-wing, more kind of Europe-centered, but there's still that clash of generations, right? Where the older people, they don't speak English, they speak still Russian. There's a huge difference between urban Polish people and rural Polish people. The guys, who don't live in cities, those are the main people voting for the PiS, which is a law and justice political party. Right. So there's a huge divide in Poland based on city and rural, age and different generations locking heads.
And if you're the Law and Justice Party, then is still angry at Russia, correct? Because they pretty much. In fairness, all of Poland hates Russia. Right. So that's the interesting thing, because it's a Trump-like figure, but they're against Russia. Then I guess you'd be pro. You're a member of NATO, Poland. Yeah. Right. So it's still like a Western Europe. Even in the Law and Justice, how do they feel about the rest of Europe then? And
so that there's a lot of benefits from being in the European Union, but their general angle is to kind of fuck Europe, do it our own way. Right, in general, but obviously it has some nuances. Sometimes it's better to be a bit more European. Sometimes it's not. But in general, it's fucking Poland, and we're Poland, and fuck the rest.